亲爱的观众朋友，大家好，欢迎收看本期的《对话华尔街》节目，我是陈子纯。本期节目呢，曾经多次参加我们专访的Sandra Navidi又再次来到了我们的节目。那么，这位德国的经济学家其实刚刚从欧洲回来，并且见到了很多欧洲的政界以及商界的领袖人士。那么 ，Sandra 的这次欧洲之行都看到了什么，又感受到了什么？德国和西班牙的一个个低于外界预期的经济数字，又会给全球的经济复苏施加多大的压力？那么实际上，4月份日本的经济数字都是好于外界预期的，再加上中国近期的表现，那么现在的世界经济状况是不是风景亚洲独好？欢迎收看本期的对话华尔街，来听一听美女经济学家Sandra Navidi讲一讲她对欧洲经济的亲身体验，以及对世界经济的独到看法。Sandra Navidi, BeyondGlobal 公司 CEO， 前卢比尼全球研究院首席战略分析师，也是宏观经济专家。Hi Sandra, thank you for coming again to our interview.
Thank you very much for having me, Kevin.
First of all, we know that you just came back from Europe, and I know you met many CEOs from many European companies. So can you briefly tell us what did you feel and what did you see there in Europe?
The mood is very somber and the outlook is pessimistic. There are still large pots of money looking for investments, but they don't really know where to find them, and so they're trying to discuss it with each other. So you see circles of very sophisticated investors coming together directly. And I think the trend is to look towards Asia, even though that's not without problems, but at least it's an alternative.
According to the economic data, the numbers released several days ago, the European manufacturing index keeps dropping for 21 months. So we know you just came back from Europe. Do you think it's a reality there? Do you think Germany is facing any problems?
Yes, I think we're in a cycle still of a global deleveraging, and so there's a lack of demand, which is why the central banks are being so active. And I think since the slowdown is global, even Germany, as the second largest exporter in the world after China, will feel some of the ramifications. So even if it's holding up well, and even though it diversified globally, it still can sense it.
So what's your take on the Germany's newest unemployment rate, which is 6.9%, I believe?
I think it goes with the global outlook that it's a little bit depressed. Germany is holding up pretty well so far, especially in Europe. We have the lowest unemployment rate and see a brain drain from other countries, young people from Spain and Cyprus that all want to come to Germany and work there. So I don't think, unless something really bad happens, I don't think it's going to go a lot higher, but I don't see that it's going drastically lower either in the near future.
As you mentioned, Spain, Spain's first quarter unemployment rate is 27.2%, which is the highest rate in like 37 years. So what do you think about this number?
I think it's dangerous, and back to your first question, what everybody's concerned about in Europe is social unrest. And everybody thinks it's sort of overdue, and nobody knows what could trigger it. But high unemployment amongst young people is certainly one factor. In addition, real estate prices keep on dropping, no floor in sight. The banking system has fundamental problems. The government is facing trust issues. So all in all, what we haven't seen yet is a turnaround of momentum where at least it's stabilizing and you can see some progress. So it's still, you know, at some point it probably will still need some help.
So how is the ECB's decision related to that? Because we know yesterday they just announced to cut the interest rates to 0.5%.
Well, first of all, I think it was already factored in by the market, so if they hadn't done it, the absolute minimum, then there may have been an adverse reaction. But I think it's a sort of expression of helplessness because the politicians are not stepping up to the plate. They're not acting in a coordinated manner and fast enough. So the ECB is the only institution that can actually implement or do something for everyone. But I think the danger is that it may actually relieve policymakers of that pressure to act. But for lack of alternatives, I think they did the best that they could.
So what else do you think they could do to stimulate the economy?
The mandate of the ECB is limited, more so than in the U.S., where the Federal Reserve is also in charge of controlling unemployment, and one could argue that the ECB has already exceeded its mandate. I think it's rightly concerned about the liquidity of medium-sized and smaller companies, because I think what we see in the countries of the periphery is companies that may actually, they're fundamentally doing well, but they don't get their receivables from their from the people that owe money to them, and so that they could go into bankruptcy, and that could trigger a domino effect. We've already seen it a little bit, and that is unnecessary and can be cured if we provide sufficient liquidity.
Okay, let's focus on Asia a little bit. Based on your observation and the Japanese economic numbers, do you think the Japanese economy is on a speeding recovery process since the numbers are pretty good?
Well, I think that's some momentum from the measures of the central bank. I think they had to enact some drastic measures because they were in a rut, stuck in a rut for 20 years. And I think that's the effect, and it's been welcomed positively. But long term, I think they have to be concerned about upsetting their trading partners because the yen may fall and then the dollar may rise. So it's a delicate balance.
Okay, we can see today the dollar breaks 15,000 points this morning. So do you think the U.S. market is right now ignoring what's happening in Europe?
I think so. I think it's sort of decoupled from Europe and from fundamentals. On the other hand, the risks in Europe are prevalent, but they're very hard to quantify. And what is almost impossible to say, what is the trigger point and what is the timing? So what is the use? You can't really prepare, and while things are good, you still try to make money.
Great. Lastly, how would you forecast the European economy for the rest of this year?
At best, flat, because there are some headwinds that we're still facing. Some of the countries in the periphery are in a continued recession or even depression. So the average, well, I think flat, and I hope that we'll be able to see a turnaround in the near future.
Great. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you for coming to the interview.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
好的，亲爱的观众朋友们，以上就是本期的对话华尔街，我是陈子纯，感谢您的收看，我们下周节目再见。